today I will be working on this 500 gigabyte Western Digital drive out of one of these old iMacs. These units belong to Tornado family, so it's a very common problem for those devices to accumulate problems with PCBs. Unlike many other drives that have problems with PCBs and result in not being able to spin up, these drives actually spin up fine, but they begin clicking, and that's probably the only time where you're going to see PCB problem result in the clicking sound. This unit here has a PCB number 701477, which is probably one of the main boards for units like that. And the easy way to find out whether or not it's the cause of the issue, or just to confirm if that's the possible issue with the PCB, you can just undo these 4 bolts at the back of the device and look at the isolating gasket. If you see a bunch of corrosion spots around where the solder joints would be, chances are something is affecting the board's function. So one of the ways to repair this unit would be to actually, I'm suspecting that the problem is with the smooth chip, which is a spindle idle controller. You can try and remove that chip, but it's got a bunch of legs on it. So unless you have proper SMT equipment for soldering, I don't think you're going to be able to just simply remove it and replace it. Plus, you're going to need to have a donor device like it. The downside of this board, well, it's not really a downside, but the extra step that makes it a little bit more difficult with this board is the fact that this board doesn't have external firmware. So unless you have tools that are able to extract that firmware and write it to the donor board, you're not going to be able to simply do this swap. The tools I use for this job would be PC3000, but there are tons of other tools on the market for professional data recovery use that can do the same function. It's not very complicated function. You just have to rebuild ROM from service area if this unit doesn't spin, but I'm suspecting this drive actually spins. It will let me read the ROM information, read the ROM modules, and find the donor PCB and write the ROM from this unit into the donor PCB, as well as the modules for the ROM from this PCB onto a donor PCB. That doesn't spin the drive down when it begins to read. The problem with this device is when it spins up, as soon as I hit read or image, it snaps into clicking sound. It starts powering up and powering down, doing a whole bunch of hectic things, which is a very typical for Tornado family that is no longer working. So I'll show you the brief steps that I use to get it going, and if you guys have a problem with an older drive like that doesn't work properly, that spins up and down, clicks, let me know. The contact information will be in the description of this video if you need help with it, but if you already have tools to work with this stuff, maybe you'll learn something new today. Alright, so I was able to locate a donor, and as you guys can see right now, it's running an express test. There is really no hesitation. The drive doesn't spin down. The drive actually reads fairly good for its age. I'm gonna pause this here. I don't need to really test it any further. A couple of seconds would have been perfectly fine. I'm gonna auto select the utility for Western Digital, and when we're in here, all I have to do is really just create a backup of all the resources that this drive has. I'm just gonna exclude the tracks because really modules and ROM information will be more than enough. So right now it's creating a duplicate into our database of all of the modules and ROM information, and it's gonna save it onto a local hard drive. Now once this process is done, it's a fairly quick process for this device. I'm gonna shut it down, remove the board, put the board onto the patient. But first, let's see if it's got a... It doesn't have the external ROM chip also, which is perfect. Because if the donor board has external ROM, it is not going to be compatible. There are ways to make it compatible, but it will require certain physical adjustments to the board, which I don't plan to do right now. Patient drive with the donor board without firmware adaptation. Comes ready. Gets recognized as tornado. Into force. And this time it was able to find the beginning, and it gives us reading the catalog of modules by ID, and it gives us permission to do so. That's exactly what we were looking for. Okay, so now I'm going to go to service area, and I'm going to read all of the modules. I'm going to create this profile as I did before, rebuild, ROM rebuild for YouTube. Up here, all of the modules that begin with 100, first of all, I'm going to deselect everything, and I'm only going to select modules that begin with 100. So 102, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. And reading by ID. So currently we save these modules into the profile, and now what we're going to do is go into service information, work with ROM, and where's this? Rebuild ROM using service area. Looks like they might have automated this. I have not been I haven't been using Sorry guys, this is kind of new to me. I haven't used this feature. It used to be manual process. Now it looks like they've implemented some automatic functions here, so I'm just kind of figuring it out as we go. Perfect. So what we've just done, it actually, automatic function was able to locate all of the information. I'm kind of glad they did it, but I was going to show you guys the manual process of doing this, but this works too. So right now it actually gives us the ID. Service serial number of this drive ends with 1050. Just going to confirm that. Yeah, 1050. So the drive actually gives us proper ID. Let's see if it gives us access to any sectors. We'll go to sector edit and select sector 0. There's our MBR. And last but not least, let's run a quick express test to just make sure that the drive reads and doesn't power down. As you guys can see, perfect result. So now we're going to begin imaging, and once the imaging is finished, data gets transferred to an external drive or whatever medium that they provide, and client just has to pick it up. Thank you very much for watching. This was very informative for myself as well. I'm glad that they constantly improve features on their tools, and this is one of those things where the technology changes, things change, and right now the most common drives that we see are modern Western Digital products such as MyBooks and Passports. But It used to be several years ago where tornado was a very, very frequent patient, and getting this kind of work on them was a regular routine job. Right now, because it's hasn't been on my lap for too long, the process is not on the tip of my tongue. Bottom line is that this case is now solved. Results are going to be great. I don't think there's going to be any complications with it, so client should be happy. I thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit like if you haven't already, and I'll see you shortly with the next episode.